Welcome back to Granja Caimito in the Pedroche Valley of Andalusia, Spain. Last time I showed you around our Zone A to show you what earthworks we have done and what potential other earthworks we might be doing. This time I take you up to Zone C and do the very same thing. I am now in the easement in front of our Paddock C1 and I'm panning over to the north. You see there in the background there is something that looks a little bit hillish. It goes down to the animal lane in the back, but it's not really steep. And I thought about ripping there instead of making a swale or something like that. So in summer maybe that is something we can then do. Right now we would destroy what we have achieved so far. So there's no point in bringing a machine in there. And you can see that the lower part of Zone C is slightly sloped, but it's not really that we have runoff here. The stones and all that you see, this is just because of the soil is in such a bad shape, and in the middle there, partially where the posts, the fence posts are, there used to be a road that goes up to the altiplano, and it's slowly disappearing. So what you see here is not really erosion, it's more a dying landscape. And by bringing in manure and to do our rotational grazing, this is improving. But there's really no point in doing some earthworks here. You could probably do a little bit of ripping there on this downslope of this little hill, but that would be maybe 2 or 3 contour lines, and then that's about it. And of course you have to be careful with the roots of those oak trees, so you probably end up ripping at most 100 meters. So I think that's not really worth it. It is much better to let nature do its thing. And we have never seen water rushing down there. It's simply not steep enough. What we did see is, here in this area, so let me zoom out again, so that you understand the situation, that this is a lot better than further up. But yes, of course, you will now say, this is because material washes down. Yes, certainly, but then there is not much left that can wash down. So we better continue improving instead of changing, and then we will see. So this is getting better every year since we are doing this, and we have not been doing this for a very long time just yet. So that is the beginning of Zone C, and I will now drive up there and show you our big temporary paddocks and talk about the swales that we already have there and what we could be doing, or maybe not, and what alternatives there are. To the left, that is the zone that we call CT1. It is a temporary paddock, hence the T in its name. And this is where the pigs used to be. They are now gone. And there, in the distance, you can see the big swale. That is dug by a Caterpillar C320 excavator, a real big one. So 3 scoops of its bucket fills up a dump truck, and then the excavator has to wait. It's pretty impressive, this machine. So this machine dug this in maybe 6 hours. And it moved a lot of material. And this is the big swale that when we have really a lot of rain does fill up, and then we can see it until the beginning of summer. And of course a lot of this will go downhill, but as you can see, let me zoom out a bit so that is easier to see. So there is a slope, and a lot of this water will not run on the surface but underneath it, And what we are planning to do is, now that the pigs are out, we can actually start, is to seed and make paddocks in there to hold that water that the swale is providing us for a little while. And then this area should see improvement. So now I'm inside of CT1, and all the straw that you see here we will pick up with our backhoe bucket and use it to cover the bean seeds that are waiting to be distributed on the berm of the big swale here. And further to the left, the terrain goes downhill and it forms like a funnel, and we have walked this place a few times to understand it better, and we will use our backhoe to make some small modifications in order to stop the water from running down there. So that is where it leaves. It will come back because it goes over the neighbor's place some 200 meters, and then it comes back to a pond that we have in zone B. There's something else maybe in another video to show you. So we lose it and then we catch it again. But here we want to do some water retention features, and now that the pigs are out we can actually do this. So we can go in here and mark and begin designing this area. The area is pretty solid because of all the stones, so I think with our backhoe we can risk it. While this whale here got dug at this position because I got stuck with the backhoe in all this quicksand that we had there. Now it's a swale. So this is work in progress, or work to be started, and then you will see more water retention features in here. But it's not that we are losing a lot of water here by any means, because the big impact is that swale over there. This has stopped a lot of water flow in its track. So what we are now doing is more the details. So we will have an animal lane in here and several paddocks, and as part of that design there will be some very small swales, or might also be just dripping, in order to loosen up the soil a little bit and hold the water for a little bit longer, so that the plants that we are about to seed will be able to establish. And you might see, if I zoom in a bit, this is greening up, so there are some seeds left that are coming up now, but it's nothing really useful as forage. So we definitely need to bring in new stuff here. And we might not be able to succeed in here in time, but doesn't matter, there will be next year. So I just went about 100 meters higher along our combination of driveway and animal lane. There will be a fence between the two trees that you see here, that one here and over there, and the driveway will be to the left and the animal lane will be right here in front of us. For example, here's already a fence post for the corner, and then the animals will go into this, and there to the right is a gate for this paddock, and this one is not a gate. It is a gate at the moment, but it is actually the entrance to the animal lane, and the animals will then follow what is marked by the white flexible fence post, which is a temporary solution. So they will go all the way there, and when they come to the other end of our property, this is some 500 meters, then they will turn right and continue to make their way up to the altiplano. So as this is becoming an animal lane, it acts like a swale, because there's slope to the right. So there the terrain goes up, as you can see, and any water that wants to run down, of course we will then catch here, so that it does not erode away the animal lane. Our idea is to do this with vetiver instead of digging. And also, once this has been built, we also want to put some vetiver on the downslope side, in order to keep the animal lane more or less in good shape and have moisture and all that be captured on either side, so that it benefits the plants on those respective sites. And further ahead, there you see the second big swale. That is the one where the palovnia trees are, and that is a structure that we created in order to avoid the other swale that is down there from overflowing, because the integrated pond there at the far end was overflowing, and so making this second swale helped it. But we did this last year, and so far we have not had enough rain to see the effect. So maybe later in this month, or in February, or during spring, we will then see how it goes. Another 100 meters further up the driveway. So you see this area here that is above the second big swale, and you might be able to spot there in the distance, where I'm going to zoom in, another swale. This is an older one that was dug very early on, and it doesn't really fill up like the other ones do, but it catches some water. But it lacks plants, so we need to seed there also. That is the general problem, that we don't have enough seed in our seed bank because of the poor management in the past. So I don't see us digging anything here, but maybe in some cases do some experiment with a U-shaped ring of vetiver below an oak tree along the drip line. So that is something that we might be able to do. But I don't see any point of digging more here, because if the existing structures don't really fill up and don't hold the water for very long, which means for summer when there is zero rain, then there's no point in having more of them. So we better use plants like vetiver. So now I pan to the right. So this is here the perimeter fence, and we created this recently. So this is an entrance to a paddock, and the interesting thing, after last night's rain, we have some puddles here. So they did a good job with their hooves. They loosened this up. This used to be very hard, so they have broken up the crust, and it helps with some infiltration. And if I now take you over here, of course now it's muddy, but doesn't really matter, it will transform. So here, what you see ahead, there under the fence, you can see that there is some wood that someone in the past placed there. This is an area where we lose water, and this water goes over the neighbor's land all the way down. It's like a funnel, and then eventually it will meet the easement and flows down the easement and then flows into our compound. That is something that we have on our list to fix, but instead of fixing it in front of the compound, our idea is to build a dam here. So this funnely area we want to turn into a pond here at the very end. So let me walk a little bit. I hope it doesn't shake too much. Trying to hold it as still as I can. So maybe here it is better to understand. So there the funnel starts. On top of that is our driveway, and then this is the pretty steep downslope, and this area has been carved out by nature. And now down here we want to make a U-shape, have a huge dam, certainly as high as the fence, and then put the fence on top of it and use plants to stabilize this. Then comes the vetiver again, and then we can hold the water that is definitely flowing down here that slope. And that is certainly what we see here. And for the remainder of this area up there, we want to build some terraces by using vetiver. There are many oak trees that are holding on to this hill, so digging is not a very good idea. So instead we plant vetiver on contour, and that way we not only have something to hold on to the material, but we also have something that is growing mulch for us. So later, when we want to do more plant related things in this area, we also have the mulching material right there on site. We don't have to bring in material from elsewhere. So it's an investment into the future, and at the same time we are doing some earthworks by not moving the earth. So that is the plan here. This is the swale that I mentioned before when I was some 150 meters below. This was dug with a backhoe, and I believe it is now in its third year. And as you can see, not that much has grown on it, on the berm, except here in the shade. But there where the sun hits, there isn't that much. And here is another good example. You see this little pile there, full of stone, and not much growth there. A little bit on the left side. So that is the problem. And this is supposed to become a little garden like the other berms of the swales. So over time, when we have enough biomass here, then we can plant useful things on those berms. But again, that is another topic. So I want to talk about the earthworks and what alternatives we have instead of using an excavator. So this exists, and as you can see, there is no water in it because there was not enough, and also I can tell you that it never held any water in here. So it infiltrates, and then you can't see it anymore. So again, here the plan is to further improve this by planting vetiver at the edge of the berm. And I will now take you to the far end, where we have an integrated pond area. So here, at the far end of it, we do have some standing water. Those little puddles right here. And then the pond area. The bottom is clay. If I come closer, you will be able to see this very clearly. So this certainly is clay, and when the animals are here, they will drink out of it because it's easier than to walk all the way to the waterer at the entrance of our zone C. And here on the berm, not much is going on because it's mostly stone and sand, and there's not much soil, and therefore there are not much plants. So we need to help out a little bit, and probably the technique is going to be beans covered with straw like we did elsewhere. And then up there are a few trenches, and these trenches are already filled with some plants. We seeded a lot here in this area by putting the seed on top or in between or below the straw that we distributed. Here in the foreground you can see some of this coming up, and I will show you a little bit more in a moment. And those trenches up there, they stop erosion, but they don't hold water. But we now have some rye at them, and the rye will certainly change this a little bit. But I don't expect standing water in there. Wouldn't be good for the rye either. But at least there are some roots in there. And when the rye later is not there anymore, then those roots have added a little bit to the biomass in the soil. Of course, this is just a drop on a hot stone, but something is something, so at least we are starting. And yes, of course, there used to be runoff, and now that runoff is stopped, but then those trenches, they are also a little bit over 3 years now. And not much has happened there so far, which is why we seeded. And we finally figured out a method how we can do this old-fashioned instead of using a tractor, and as you will see in a few seconds when I go up there, it is working. So this is now the inside of one of those trenches, and you can see the rye coming up. It's a bit hard to film because of the huge difference in light. So if I zoom out, you can see the trench is pretty much dark, but it gets light early in the morning, and then of course the rye tries to grow fast and reach the light. So it is working. This trench is full, and the other ones further up, they're equally as full with rye. And we have also put out more seeds, like the things that are growing up here. And if I pan around, all this area is now seeing new growth because of what we seeded. Because there were no seeds in this area left, so we had to bring them in. So it's working out. Again, the inside of one of those trenches. I'm trying to cover this a little bit, but due to the challenging light situation, it is not that easy. So, but I think you believe me that there is rye growing inside. And this mix that we used for the Mediterranean climate with all kinds of grasses and flowers and other things, it's all coming up. I would think for the moment only the cold climate grasses are coming up, but it does contain also Bermuda grass, which should then emerge in summer. And I hope that the ants that eventually will also show up here will not take too much away. But then I think the cows have trampled, and a lot of seed should be now in contact with the soil. And the manure piles in between are also very good. So this area is now undergoing a transformation. It is now 3 weeks that the cows have been here and we seeded, and what we see at the moment is the result. Not directly related to earthworks, but you can see the earthworks and what we do in order to stop the runoff, because there are two ways. You can move the dirt or you can put something into the dirt, and I believe into the dirt is what most of the time is more effective. Not everything is about reshaping the landscape, because this is a hill and we will not flatten the hill. So we just do something to stop erosion, and one way is by digging a little bit, another is by ripping a little bit, and the third way is by adding plants. And by that I refer to those that we have seeded, but mostly to something like vetiver. This to me seems to be a very effective way, which is why we are trying to cultivate as much vetiver as we can, so that we can use this as a tool in all those areas. I am now almost at the top. The thing there to the left is the last trench, and here to the right you can then see where the slope begins and the altiplano is. So that is the end of our big slope in Zone C in the west side of our driveway, and I intend now to go to the left side, to the east side of the driveway. So you see the Jeep down there, and then there's a zigzag road coming up. There are more trenches, and there where this trench ends, there the road comes up, and I will now go over there. So I just stepped out of the Paddock West Wales, or the trenches. There you can see the last one that I showed you from the other side. And down there you can see the blue Jeep. And this is the road that comes up. And here we have a little bit of earthworks. It is a hole, and it does contain water. So the bottom is clay. And this is also where the cows, when they are in this area, drink water, so they consume some of it. I will go there in a second, but first I want to show you the things to the left. So let me zoom out again. So this is the funnel that I spoke about when I was down there. So let me come closer so that it's easier to see. So the water goes into this funnel and then will leave behind those trees there. So here to the left you can see the area with a lot of stones that I showed you from below, and in the future we will have water there because we built a dam. And the slope up here to the left, this is going to be terraces created by the use of vetiver. So there is already one terrace here, that's a natural one, and up here there will be more with the help of vetiver. And there where the straw is, and other areas that are pretty stony, there we have a special project. So there will be no earthworks in order to retain water, but instead we will build something there. But that is in the future and not the topic of this video just now. So this is where the driveway continues, and that pile up there, that is the beginning of carving out a road here, but without having a bulldozer it is a little bit difficult. So the idea is to wait until a bulldozer is nearby. That is how it works here. So we know someone who has all the equipment, and whenever he is nearby with some heavy equipment he will call us, and if we can use it for something then it's an easy job, because these machines work incredibly fast and it's much more expensive to move them around instead of having them on site to do a quick job. So a bulldozer in an hour will probably create all this road very, very nice, but bringing it here takes 3 hours. And of course time is money, and he has a lot of jobs to do, so that is our agreement that we have. We consider the owner of this company a friend, and so he helps us out whenever he can. He is also big in recycling. For example, whenever we need some sand, there are two types of sand. One is river sand that gets trucked in from afar, and the other is recycled sand, because he has a plant where he can recycle residue and other stuff from demolition activities, and he grinds it, and once it's ground fine enough, then it's sand. It's cheap local sand made by recycling, so that's a very good thing, and that is something we use, for example, to bury pipes or similar things. It's not good for mixing concrete, but for the other things it is great. So back to the water and earthwork thing. So here there will be something in the future, but in the areas where we won't build anything, we will use the vetiver to establish it. And of course in summer it needs drip irrigation, but we have water up here, and therefore we can keep it growing and do its job, and over time material will accumulate upslope, and therefore we will have a terrace. And we might bring in more of this old straw, like the stuff that is sitting there, and that way we can do something here. And there are some ideas, I mentioned this in another video. Maybe we plant some olive trees here between the oaks. We will see, to make some use of the poor soil that we have here. So I think that concludes the walkabout Zone C, looking for opportunities for water retention and earthworks. And there is not much else that we can do here. There is another downslope up there, but that's for another video. And by the way, those are gunshots that you hear. There are people out hunting, and it's likely they're hunting rabbits. In order to stop erosion from the driveway, we left this pile of dirt here, so that at least it won't rush to the left. But then there is also this little pond-like thing. And as you can see, it does contain water because it has a clay bottom, and the cows are not here, so nobody will drink it. And I keep pointing out that on the berm of all these swales or ponds or whatever we dug, not much is growing. And that is because there is no soil with seeds. So in order to have some green here, we need to bring in seeds. This is a step-by-step process, and as we continue to do this, we will then be able to get something like this here. So this is the result of putting seed on top of the straw before the animals start to eat the straw, and it works. So in combination with a little bit of earthworks, that is how we can definitely put new life in this place. That is one of the reasons why we are distributing the straw by hand, using a wheelbarrow. We can this way put it exactly there where the situation is worse, and therefore this intervention has the most effect. So as you can see, this is only stones and dirt, and now we have the straw there, and in the straw there was seed, and therefore now we have some plants going, and it's of the right type, so it's actually forage and a tallish growing grass, and with a machine that would be more challenging. Of course you could say that you just run down with that trailer, but then all those stones are not really good for the tires of the vehicle and the trailer, so doing it manually gives us a lot more control. And it's not the worst thing to do, because there is sunshine and it's a lovely surrounding. And the older Juan, for example, he definitely does enjoy this. And I believe this is a technique that could be done elsewhere here in this area as well. It's not very efficient, but it is very effective.
Thank you for watching this rather technical video. I hope it was interesting, and in a couple of days I see you back here at Granja Caimito in Andalusia, Spain.